When was the last time you intentionally sat down and thought about talking about yourself? If you are anything like me, your answer is most likely not recently, and that is kind of weird anyway. It's honestly kind of a weird thing to think about for most people, this idea of talking to others about just you and just telling your story. But as Christians, our story is one of the most impactful and powerful tools we have to talk about to others about Jesus and what he is doing in our lives. I'm sure if you reflect a little, you can think of a time someone else told you part of their story and it left an impression on you. Today, we are going to talk about how we can tell our own story to others so they can see the good work that God is doing in your life. Our story or testimony falls broadly into two categories: what God has done in my life and what God is doing in my life. When it comes to what God has done in my life, we are thinking back to moments or seasons that we have already taken place in, and seeing now how God used that to cultivate change in our lives. One of the best things I have done to just help myself get comfortable with the timeline of what happened and staying familiar with the details, as I sat down and just typed up my story. I intentionally set out to remember as much as I could, going back to think through the details of what happened. Periodically, I'll look at this and just reminisce. By doing this, I found that I was not only more comfortable talking about my story, but also more comfortable using my story as a way to connect with someone else in a similar place that I was. Some of the most precious ministry moments I have come from shared experiences with someone and being able to help them through a season of their life. As far as talking about what God is doing in my life, I have found that sharing the play-by-play with my community to be the best way to use these works in progress for God. Establishing a small group of people that are willing to listen to what God is doing and help you make sense and celebrate the awesome opportunities that God is giving you allows you to not only minister to others, but others to minister to you. Oftentimes, we like to think of our story as the experiences we had leading up to the moment that we decided to follow Jesus. But the truth of the matter is that our story is constantly being written because God is constantly working in our lives. It doesn't matter what your story is, God will use it all for his kingdom work. All we have to do is be willing to tell that story. Writing it out and having a community around us are just two of the ways that we can practice telling that story.